Hi, I'm Wendy, and for the last several years I've been using tissue paper to create tissue art and using the tissue paper to create landscapes specifically, and I like to call them TissueScapes or Tissue Escapes. I'm here today to demonstrate how you too can use this technique to create tissue art and create landscapes of your own design. Thank you. Now to get started, you'll need a few materials. Of course, tissue paper, and you can even use tissue paper that you've gotten from a gift, even if it's crumpled, because I will show you how you can use it and get the wrinkles out. You can get tissue paper from stationery stores, packages of it, or go online. I like to use a dry erase surface poster board. It's excellent for when you put the glue on. That is a matte medium glue, a craft glue. And also when you put that on, the dry erase surface does not pucker, so it's excellent. Then also you could use some painter's tape, because when you remove that, it doesn't affect the surface of the dry erase poster board. I also use a poster board in the back as a base. I have a ruler, I have a pencil, and I have the UV resistant clear acrylic coating that I use. And that is because tissue paper is not a museum quality tissue medium. It tends to fade in the sun, and the UV resistant clear acrylic coating spray, I put 2 coats on, helps protect it from fading. But as a warning, I would not, once you frame your art, your tissue art, put it on a wall that faces the sunlight. Thank you. Well, first you tape down your dry erase poster board with the painter's tape onto the back poster board that you have, paper, and then you check off lines and on the poster board next to the dry erase board, and you have it the same on both sides. And that's because we're doing landscapes, and I give myself about 3 different areas to show the landscape, depending on whether I want more sky or more landscape. In this instance, I'm going to make a seascape. So I also use a mat on top so you can see what you're going to see for the final. More or less. You can always put a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, down or high, depending on your favorite spots in the final picture. Okay, so for the horizon line, I use the manufacturer's straight edge from the tissue paper. Otherwise, I tear, and that is because there's a softer look and it's more natural than a cut from a scissor tissue paper. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this color, pale blue, on the sky, and I'm going to decide if I want more sky, or I think I'm going to want more sky and less water. And I'm using a very pale aquamarine for a color for the ocean. Now, when you do this, even a slight overlap of the 2 colors is better than having a little gap of white. Okay, so for the clouds and for the foam that would be at the edge of the water as it hits the sand, let's just say I'm going to have a sandy beach, I could have a cliff in the front and that would be green or rock. But in this instance, I'm going to have the foam showing at the edge of the ocean as it meets the sand. So for that, I just use the white of the paper, the board. So I have to cut this down so that I can have some clouds. So I'll just demonstrate how I tear. I try not to make it straight across. That's very boring. I try to have kind of a inundated look to it, but gradual. It's a little bit more effective. Sometimes a harsh change is of interest though. So here's an example of tearing. Now I always have the paper go beyond the edges of the dry erase board, and I can always, that way I have flexibility as to where I want to put it. And at the end, I will cut them off, the extra pieces, after it's dry. Don't try to do it when it's wet. It will make a mess. Going across the horizon sky. And it will be very serene. I like to make my landscapes rather serene and calming. Okay, so you don't want to have the same look. So that's another good reason that you can bring the tissue paper back and forth and decide where you want to have it. Okay, so I'm still deciding where I want to put the horizon. I think there's too much without a break, so I'm going to cut this down even further. I'm going to make it here. I'm just going to bring it down. I save the extra little pieces because you never know where you want to use them. And also it's fun to overlap the colors and see what interesting colors result. Either you can overlap the same color or different colors, and that's part of the fun, is seeing what you get once it's glued down. Okay, I'm taking the center spot. So, okay, so the first thing I have to do is gently, because I don't, even though this is a good surface for gluing, I don't like to press too hard on the brush. And I don't necessarily glue the whole back at once. And it's a good idea not to have your strips of paper too wide, because I'll show you what happens. It's difficult to glue it without making a mess. So 2 to 3 inches is a good amount. Okay, so I am taking the paper and kind of bringing it to one end and lightly going over to the other. I happen to pick the center of my 3 marks. I'm happy with that. And then I take and gently, very gently, starting from the center, I brush on the glue. Now, you see there's like a crease there. So you can gently improve on that if you're very light touched with the brush. Yeah. Make sure that if you use a brush more than once, that you clean it before you reuse it and don't have little flecks of old glue in there, because it can be a disaster if it gets under the tissue paper. The goal of this is to get rid of excess creases, whatever you can, with the glue, and also keep the tissue paper in one spot, and also any air bubbles. But you can get away with a few layers at one time. Okay, so now I'm gonna do a little bit of the seascape, and again, I glue. I like to do the sky first and then work down so I don't get the glue on my hands or sleeves or elbows. It's always a good idea. Okay, so this is a little tricky. I want to make sure that I don't have any white gaps. So I think this will work. And again, I press it just lightly, because I have to come back and glue on top, and I don't want it to be permanently in place because the puckers the air pockets and the creasing can get a little intense. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try using some really wrinkled paper for the sand, because I got it in a gift and I have not seen it anywhere else, and I love it for the sand. So, and as you can see, even though it's quite crumpled up, once it's glued down, it looks great. Look at that. It's kind of fun. There. There you go. And I think I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back to it and add on. Thank you.